Hello everyone. Welcome to LEDX Bootcamp on Clat. Crack the rank, not just Clat. We have three guest speakers here who are hugely accomplished in their own rights. Shantanu Bishnoi, Moni Kaushal Jain, and Gautam Raj Phulera. All three of them have been great flat rankers. They have accomplished huge achievements. They are top 10, top 15 rankers in All India ranking over the past 3 years, and all three of them are studying at NLS Bangalore, which is the top ranked national university in India. So these three guys will be sharing the tips. I will be asking them some of my questions. You guys can also relay your questions in the chat box. I'll be reading them out as well. So let's begin the session. I want each one of you guys to give your introduction. So Shantanu, you begin, then Molly, then Gautam.
Hello everyone, myself Shantanu. I am a second year law student at National Law School Bangalore and I am from Rajasthan. I hail from Rajasthan and I scored AIR 10 in CLAT 2020.
So Molly, your introduction, please. Is having technical issues. Gautam, you can begin until then.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Gautam Raj Phulera, and I come from Dehradun, Uttarakhand. I gave CLAT in the year 2021 and secured an All India rank of 25.
I'll begin the session. First of all, let me explain the format. I'll be talking to each one of these rankers one at a time for 10 minutes, and then we'll be going forward on a question and answer basis based on what you guys write on the chat box. So I'll begin with Shantanu. Shantanu, first of all, I would like to ask you, since the format changed very recently when you gave the paper in 2019, what do you think is a aspect you should keep in mind when preparing for CLAT on the new format of the paper, the 150 question format?
Yes, sir. So, sir, with the new format, I think your hold on the English subject has become even more important because in the earlier pattern there was still a chance if you are not in English, then still if you can score in GK or in mathematics or in reasoning, then still there was a chance that you can ace with very good marks. But now with every section having such long comprehension questions, then definitely your hold on English and also your reading speed holds very important place now.
Okay, so how would you suggest the students to, clear this problem out or read up on more comprehensions? Where do you suggest the students go and read up so that they not only have a fast reading speed but also understand what the questions are asking?
Yes, sir. So, sir, if I can tell you from my personal experience that my English was not very well, and when the syllabus changed, then I started reading more editorials from the English newspaper. So earlier, if I was giving 30 minutes to the editorials, then I started giving 2 hours. So I was reading from Indian Express, from The Hindu, or even if I was sitting randomly still, I was reading in my smartphone, say some law article from Live Law or Bar and Bench. So I increased my reading time, and also at the same time I every day I kept a habit that I will every day I will solve like 30 or 35 questions of critical reasoning and English section with a timer. So like I will do a 30 minutes timer and I will try to solve as many questions as I can, and then I will review them. So I followed this thing for around 2.5 or 3 months, and then it started giving me results.
Okay, that's great to hear. I would also like to talk to you about arithmetic reasoning, as some of the students find it a difficult section to encounter. Even if maths is not there, they find questions a lot time consuming. So, what do you feel about that? How do you suggest people encounter that issue?
Yeah, so mathematics is a session where you have to attempt a question. Just by seeing the question, you cannot assume that whether you will be able to do it or not. You have to invest 2 or 3 minutes in it, and yeah. So your calculation speed matters a lot. So if you can do it in your mind, multiplication, say 23 into 47, or if you can find percentages and ratio and proportions in your mind, then it definitely helps a lot because most of these questions are of pie charts or bar graphs. So out of 15, if you can if you can attempt 11 or 12 questions and score well in them, then I think that's a reasonable score in math.
Okay. I would also like to talk to you about general knowledge questions and what do you feel is the preparational strategy for general knowledge?
So for regarding general knowledge, I can say you that GK I scored the highest in the Clat, and that was the portion where I was able to do well. So regarding GK, one thing is that we have to take interest in GK. So if you are saying that every day I will sit for 2 hours and I will jot down all the notes, so that thing will not work. So you have to revise it also. So have a habit of like say weekly or bi-weekly revising your notes, or at least before mocks just skimming through all your GK notes. So I started my day with regarding GK. I first read the Hindu newspaper and followed it with say some one or two IES preparation websites who have a in-depth like a note on the what is in current GK. So I every day prepared my for GK and I relied on them.
Okay, and I would also like to ask you for the legal reasoning questions. Did you have prior knowledge about law? Because some schools offer, legal methods as an optional subject also nowadays. Or did you only start preparing for legal questions when you decided to give CLAT?
I started preparing for legal subject only after deciding to give the exam. So regarding that, in the year when I gave, it was the year when the syllabus was changed. So even when I gave the mocks, so even they were not having a fair idea of what kind of questions will be asked. So like I relied most on law articles. So I used to read on, let's say, some provisions of the IPC just for the sake that if I see a question of legal reasoning in the question paper, that shouldn't be a new one for me, like the concept used in it. So many times we got confused in what the question is saying about culpable homicide or something else. So if you have just skimmed through these things in prior, so it definitely helps you.
Okay, wonderful. I would now like to move on to Gotham for a few minutes. So Gotham, please, talk to the students about, as you know, there are only 2 hours to give the exam, and the number of questions is more than one per minute. So how do you manage time in the exam? Because that is a very important strategy and skill to, encounter.
Right. So, like, you have to fix a bar for each section, an ideal time limit within which you will have to complete the section, right? So this can vary from student to student depending on which sections they're good at. But there's, I think, an ideal time range for each section which you should not exceed, right? Most sections are easily uh, doable in this time limit. So I think it would be 7 to 10 minutes for GK, right? And not more than 25 minutes for English, not more than 25 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes for English, 25 minutes for critical, 30 to 35 minutes for legal, and I think 10-15 minutes for quant. Right. So this also depends on the order in which you attempt the sections, right? So uh, that's what you have to manage, and you have to decide that for yourself. So if you have put a bar for a section, for example, if you've put a bar of 30 or 35 minutes for legal, and that section which comes in the paper is really difficult, right? So not all papers have all sections easy or all sections difficult, right? Some sections may be easy, some sections may be difficult. So for example, let's take in a mock or the paper, the legal section is very difficult. So yeah, you can maybe increase your bar to maybe 40 minutes, but then you'll have to adjust that in your other sections, right? You'll have to do them faster, you'll have to work harder on them, right? So that's how you have to manage your time. Secondly, you don't have to get stuck anywhere in the paper, right? So what a general mistakes that many students do is, right, they're reading a paragraph and they're not able to understand something like a particular line or a particular word in the paragraph, so they get stuck there. They keep reading the line over and over again in hopes that they'll get it, but that's kind of a time wastage, right? If you're not able to understand anything, read it again. If you're still not able to understand it, just skip it, right? You've read the rest of the passage, and there's enough information for you to be able to answer at least 3 to 4 questions. Maybe you'll not be able to answer 1 or 2 questions from that part of the that portion of the passage, but you'll be able to answer the rest of the questions, right? So you have to be smart in that. You don't have to get stuck anywhere. You don't have to get stuck at questions too. So what many students do is they take it upon their ego, right? So if they have prepared for a topic extensively and they know a lot about it, for example, let's say a student is very good at math, right? And he knows time, speed, distance very well, right? He attempts it in his mock and he gets full marks in time, speed, distance. So the same question comes in your Clat paper, right? And you're not able to do that question. So what many students do is they get it on their ego कि ये तो मेरे को आता है, I can do this easily, I'll score in this, and I have to attempt this. So they keep attempting it over and over again, and they're not able to do it. So this causes time wastage. Whatever you're not able to do after a specified time limit, right? After 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you're still not able to do it. Just leave it, because you have to be smart with your attempts. What you attempt and what you don't. You don't have to attempt 150 out of 150 questions, right? You have to attempt like 120, 130, 130. That would be an ideal number if you want to score really well, right? But you don't have to attempt all 150. You have to leave out some, right? And that's how you have to be strategic, and that's how you'll conserve your time, and you'll get more time.
Okay, so a follow-up question on this, as you rightly pointed out that all mocks and the CLAT paper which eventually shows up on the exam are drastically different or dissimilar. So in that case, how do you suggest people practice their timekeeping skills? It is important to make on-the-spot decisions as well, which you pointed out rightly. Okay, so how do you practice it, or how did you yourself practice it?
So what I did was I kept a stopwatch, or like you can. So in the offline exam, the rule generally is that you can't carry a digital watch, right? So you can't keep a stopwatch. You have to carry an analog watch, right? So students have to make sure that while they're giving a mock, they carry an analog watch with them, and then you have to distribute your time. So what I did was while I gave mocks during my prep, I usually gave them between the time of 2 to 4, right? And I knew my order of attempts. Like I knew I would attempt GK first and then legal and then whatever, right? So that the time that I would complete GK in was like usually programmed in my mind up till the point when I was ahead in my prep. So like it was like I had to complete GK within 210, and then I had to move on to legal, and then I had to complete it till 240, 245. So that's how I did, because you have to keep an analog watch. You can't keep a stopwatch, right? So you have to you know see time like this. Say this is the time limit that I have to give. This is it. And if you feel like the section is harder, you have to give more time to it. And if you feel you will be able to take lesser time in another section, then you can obviously micromanage that, and this will come only through your practice and like,
Okay, okay. Sorry for the confusion. Sorry for the confusion. Just hold on a second. I think there is some technical issue. Yeah, really apologize for that, but please continue.
yeah, so you have to keep on micromanaging your time, and this will come through your practice, right? When you give more and more mocks, and you keep an analog watch with you, and you keep timing yourself, and then your brain will automatically be programmed as to how you'll manage time during the real exam, right?
Okay. Thank you so much, Gautam. I would now like to move on to Molly. Okay, so hi Molly. My question to you is, in this particular scenario, how does one prepare their notes before CLAT? How did you yourself prepare? Because you achieved such a wonderful rank, so you must have done some research or study regarding what to do, right?
Um, Hi, am I audible?
Yeah, yeah, you are audible.
I'm extremely sorry. I think my net connection is really weak, so I'm sorry I can't turn on my video.
That's
And
fine.
also, can you please repeat question once
Okay,
again?
okay.
I'm
My
sorry if I
question.
missed it.
That's fine. My question was, how does one prepare their notes? Because they have to balance out each of the sections,
Okay.
right? Yeah.
Okay, got it. So, first of all, it depends on the section on which you are preparing notes, right? So, I can give in brief, I can tell you in what sections, what kind of notes you have to
Yeah,
prepare.
yeah, please,
So,
please.
okay, so first we will start with English. Now, in the new pattern, I think you have to prepare RCs, vocab, and like these small things like figures of speech and etc etc. So obviously you can't prepare notes for RCs. You can have some tips, some tricks how to solve an RC, but you there is nothing to make notes about. But yes, you can maybe you can make notes on vocab or figures of speech depending on whether you need notes for these kinds of thing or not. But so for specifically for English there is no need to make notes. But if, for example, I am someone who really like to make notes, and I love making handwritten notes, and I am my memory retention is greater, like is good when I learn from my handwritten notes. So that's why I used to make notes of these vocab or maybe like list of the words and stuff like that. So for English you can do that. For GK, I think I prefer online notes, and I will tell you why. So basically, GK is all about the current affairs, right? And in current
Yes.
affairs, usually most of the aspirants take more than one resource to refer to current affairs, right? So for example, you can refer to a, let's say a, let's say a newspaper, the Hindu, and a monthly magazine of of some coaching or stuff like that. So now these two resources will obviously have a lot of topics in common. So what you can do is you can make online notes. Either you can make on simply on MS Word or stuff like that, or there are specifically like apps for note making like OneNote or Evernote. So you can use those apps, and in those apps you can properly make division of topic, like properly divide your document into topic wise and make notes on that. So for GK, I personally prefer online note making because it is easy to add on to those notes. So for GK, it is like this. And then moving again to legal. In legal again, I don't think there's a need to make notes because legal is all most of is like most about practice. So obviously you have to see the past year's paper. You have to see what kind of questions they ask, and then you have to practice questions. And maybe you can make notes, like you can make notes of your mistakes. So what kind of mistakes you are repeating? Maybe there maybe you are not able to read the you are not able to understand some legal jargons. So maybe you can make notes of those particular words or phrases which you find difficult. Or maybe you are not able to you are getting confused between options, because in legal there are often tricky options. So maybe you can make notes of these kinds of stuff, like which can help like notes of tricks, maybe you can say tricks and tips that can help you to solve legal questions. But I don't think there is such a need to make notes of legal section particularly. Then moving to maths is basically about solving, right? But if you are someone who is not whose basics of maths and the topics that are there is not good, first of all make proper notes of all the formulas, all the small tips, or like or whatever you guys use, techniques you guys use to solve these questions. First of all make notes of those things, and then revise, keep revising them, because formulas and stuff like that are often consuming, so we keep forgetting them. So I think it would be better if in one or two page you have all the formulas that are, and make those handy so that you can take it anywhere and stuff, and keep revising them again and again. So, and yes, lastly logic, again the logic. So according to the new pattern, most of the questions in logic are about critical reasoning. And in critical reasoning, I don't think so that there is anything to make notes about. But yes, you have to practice with timer and maybe make notes of your mistakes, of what kind of mistakes you are doing, and and like maybe make notes of if there is a particular pattern of certain questions. So maybe you can make notes of how to solve those kind of questions. But I think notes are important in Clat, specifically in GK section. So I would say focus more on GK section when you're like, particularly when you're making notes.
Okay. Another question I would like to ask you is most of the students this time round in 2022, they are having their board exams a little later, and the CLAT exam is also being postponed. So how would you suggest these guys balance both of these things out? Because of course law is a priority, but a priority is board exams as well for a lot of these students. So how do you suggest these guys prepare for CLAT in light of the board exams there? Because they'll have only about 20 days, I think, after boards to give the CLAT exam.
Yes, I understand that. So, first of all, I don't think so that any student should completely ignore their 12th examinations, because I understand CLAT is very important. It might be a priority. Going to law school might be a dream, but 12th exams are also important to a certain extent. And if you will not perform good in 12th exams, maybe you will not be able to perform that good in CLAT exam because of that pressure you had built up on yourself, right? So that's why I think you should definitely focus on both of the exams, but again it comes to how you balance them, right? So everyone knows, like, it's April is going on, and you know that the time around June and July may be hectic for you because of the schedule of the board exams and CLAT. So you have to pre-prepare yourself. You have to make a plan how you will do revision stuff, because I'm assuming that after, when you are done with your board exams and you only have like 20-25 days, you are not you are not going to read something new on CLAT. Maybe you will need some current affairs, the news at that time, but most of the time you will only revising stuff that you have done throughout the year. So maybe prepare some notes which are handy, prepare some short notes or like some flow charts and stuff like that, that will help you to revise easily, and that will obviously help you in the exam. And also, again, for the 20 days, you have to focus on you have to again strategize on which particular sections you have to focus. So if you are weak in a particular section, or some sections like GK which requires a lot of learning, so you should focus more on chapter on sections like these on those 20 days.
Okay, so thank you so much, Molly. I would like to jump back to Gautam for a second. So, Gautam, my question is, how do you strategize which section is a priority for you? Because I asked you about timekeeping a lot. So, how do you balance it out with the priority of the sections?
Right. So you get what sections you are good at when the sections that you are weak at through your mock analysis, right? So you see which section you're scoring well in, right? So for sections also there is an ideal score for each section, right? And you have to, if you want to get into the top five, top three and reviews, you have to get above this ideal score in your mocks, right? So for each section it is different. Like for GK it would be, I think, above 20 or something, right? For English it would be above 20. For critical it would be above 22, 23, right? For legal it would be above 31, 32, and for quant I think above 8, 7, 8 would be a good score, right? So all these scores you have to see, and you have to make a note of which sections you're doing good at, and in which sections you're the ideal score that you need to achieve, right? It's not like if you're really good at GK, you believe that you will get full marks in GK, and it doesn't matter if you're not good at English or not. You have to be good in all the sections, right? So you have to see that, and then you have to analyze. You have to see which section you're good at, which is your strong suit, right? So the thing that happens is, this is a 2-hour paper, so you have to read a lot, right? There are huge paragraphs, 350-word paragraphs, right? So there's a lot of mental strain while reading, right? And it causes lethargy, right? As you progress through the paper, your mind gets more and more tired. And because your mind is getting more tired, your capability to understand keeps on decreasing, right? So once you start the paper, in the first half an hour, first 1.5 hours, you are at your peak mental capacity, right? Because you're well rested and all of that, and you can attempt difficult questions, you can read difficult paragraphs because you're not that tired, right? But as time keeps progressing, you get more tired. If, for example, if you've done the legal section first, right, if you believe that's your strong suit, and then you'll get good marks on that, and then your brain keeps on getting tired, and then your capability to understand difficult paragraphs may get lesser and lesser, right? Obviously you can increase your reading capacity through practice and all of that, but still this is a common thing that happens to all of us. So what you have to do is, you have to see which section you're good at, in which you're getting the ideal score, and which is your strong suit, right? And then you have to you can do either what you can do is keep that section first in the first 1 hour, right? So that your mental capacity is good, you can read, and then you get a good attempt at that section, and you score good marks, right? So that's what you can do, and then the sections that are not your strong suit, you can keep them afterwards. You can try this, or what you can do is, if it works out for you, you can even keep your weaker sections first, right? So if you keep your weaker section first, you're at your peak mental capacity, and then you'll be able to do better at these sections, right? The section that you're already good at, you'll be able to do that even when you're a bit tired, right? So these are two options that you have, and you have to be smart in which one you have to exercise, right? That's how you prioritize your section. I think you're muted.
Yeah, thanks for that, Gautam. That was exceptional pointers. Shantanu, one question I would like to ask to you is, you're here, right? So, what was particularly your strategy when attempting the mock exams? Because everyone has a different strategy. Sometimes people like to focus on particular sections, or sometimes people practice mock tests just for the entirety of it. What was particularly your strategy?
So, sir, I to focus on time management. So, as Bharat was saying, I also used to keep a watch with me, and I had a particular in my mind about what time I will give to, and I try to attempt as many questions as I can, because most of the times what we do is we stuck in some question, and then which leads to, like, if you are doing the quant section at the end, then it leads to like you leaving the questions in the end. So my priority was on attempting as many questions as I can with the certain with some certainty. So so yeah, time management was important for me. So I used to start with English section, then I moved to GK, followed by critical reasoning, and then legal reasoning, and at the end I used to do the quant. But still it depends on everyone on what are his priority, his strong subject. So depending on it, you should make on in what priority basis you will attempt it.
Okay. Now, the one question for all three of you guys. We'll start from Molly, then to Gautam, and then to Shantanu. My question is, how does one balance out the negative marking? Because it is also a mental block on a lot of students that there is a negative marking. How to strategize negative marking, and what was your own personal experience? So, Molly, please begin, and then we'll go to Gautam, and then to Shantanu.
Okay, so the thing about negative marking is that it happens almost in every competitive exam, right? But the only problem is that because most of the aspirants are just coming out of 12, so they don't have this idea of negative marking in their mind. So the first of all, you have to give a lot of mock tests. Don't be afraid of mocks, because as many mocks you will give, as many as mocks you will give, you will realize how to tackle with the negative marking. Now, what I used to do was that I took mocks for experiments. So when I was giving mocks, I used to try in every mock to attempt different sets of questions in order to realize what set of questions are perfect for me. So for example, the current pattern has 150 questions, but for some people, if they are giving, like, they are attempting 130, 135 questions, they might be getting good marks. For some, it might be that if they are attempting around 100 or 120 questions, they are getting good marks, right? So it depends on the combination of speed and accuracy. So in order to tackle the negative marking and in order to crack the code of this negative marking, you have to find your perfect set of and in that perfect set you only have to attempt questions. So for some people accuracy is like, for some people are really good at accuracy. So if they are attempting for, let's say, 10 questions, most of the time the 8 or 9 questions would be correct. So for them it is wise to not attempt too many questions, right? But like, if you are someone whose accuracy is not that great, if you are attempting 10 questions and maybe like 4 or 5 questions are right, or like that sort of a percentage, so you should attempt more questions, so that if there is more negative marking, but there are also like more positive marking to, like, positive marks to cover your that negative marking.
Okay, thanks for that point, Molly. What about you, Gautam? What was your experience with negative marking?
Yeah, so you have to be really careful around negative marking. So, if people don't analyze well and if people don't know the general strategy, what they do is they get very confident in their attempts and they're like, let me attempt everything. And they make flukes here and there, right, wherever they can. And then their attempts are really high, 130, 140 or something, but there's a ton of negative marking. So their score drops very low, right, because of that negative marking. So you have to be careful not to do that, right? Negative marking could screw you over, even though you know the paper, even though you could have gotten very good marks. Negative marking may screw you up if you are overconfident in your attempts, right? So you have to know what topics you're good at and what topics you're not good at, right? And this comes through analysis only, right? So if in a topic you've got low accuracy, right? For example, you are not able to solve statement assumption questions or strengthening weakening arguments or something of that sort, right? So be careful either to work on that topic to make that strong, or you just leave that question when you see it, right? So you have to be careful with that. And another thing, I already told that you don't have to take it in your ego, right? You don't have to attempt something when you're not able to answer it, even though you have read about it, even though you have studied it, right? So you have to be very careful around this. Also, you can make a few flukes here and there, like, but maximum 2 to 3, right? It's not like you're making a fluke in every passage, because that will cost you heavily, right? And especially don't make flukes in GK, because in GK you either know the answer or you don't, right? There's no middle ground in GK, right? So many people do this. They just make flukes in GK, right? ये हो सकता है, ऐसा लग रहा है, but that's not the way to do it, right? You have to be very careful, right? And yeah, you have to be careful. You have to balance between increasing your number of attempts and also decreasing your negative marking, right? Because negative marking will cost you very heavily. So that's what you have to do, and that will come through analysis only. You have to get a grip of what you're good at. Also, so like what most students do is, like, if take legal section for example, so there are let's take, there are 6 to 7 passages, right? And passage number 5 is really difficult, just prima facie on the look of it. The student approaches passage 5, he starts reading in, and he's like, it's very difficult, I'll not attempt this at all, right? So that's not the right strategy to go with. The right strategy would be, you at least read the passage once, not very, in a detailed way. If you're not able to understand it, just have a good reading of it once. There'll be at least 1 or 2 questions that you'll be able to answer in that paragraph, right? So you have to, in each passage, you don't, it's not necessary to attempt all the questions. You can attempt a few questions, you can leave out 1 or 2 questions in passages, right? Don't leave out passages entirely, just do this, like, in every passage. If you feel there is a question that you'll not be able to get right, just leave that question, right? It's not necessary to attempt all questions in a passage. So that's how you have to manage around your negative marking.
Great. What about you, Shantanu?
So Gautam and Molly has almost covered it, but still, so negative marking will definitely it is inevitable. So negative marking will be there even if you are very well in the subject. So what we can do is to minimize it, and for that, as Gautam was also saying, that many a times we try to attempt questions with the gut feeling. So in critical reasoning, it many times happen with me that I was confused in two options. So you have to go ahead with one, but then again you have to be limited. You have not to take such chances in every third or second question. So if you are sure enough that yeah, that I can attempt it correctly, then you can definitely go ahead. And in order to minimize negative marking, what I used to do was analysis of your mocks every week. Like I used to give one, and towards the last 2 months I attempted 2 or 3 mocks in the week. So in the analysis you see that in which subjects you are scoring less because of negative marking. So I lowered the attempt initially, and then I started preparing more in the particular topics in which I was falling behind. So yeah, by doing that we can definitely reduce negative marking.
That's great. Okay, so I would now like to open the floor for some questions for the students who have been attending the session so patiently so far. So please write your questions in the chat box. I'll read them out and these guys can answer it. Please utilize this opportunity. These guys have already cracked Clat, as you say it, and they'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. So, opening the floor for questions now. Also, in the meantime, I would like to ask each one of you, in short, 2 points which you want each student giving Clat to remember. So, starting with Molly.
Okay, so the first point is don't stuck to a question. Like you should know what questions to attempt, and you should also know what questions to skip. So be careful of that. And also, second thing is before beginning your exam, take 1 or 2 minutes to just skim through the entire paper in order to get a rough idea of what is the level of exam. Like, is it hard? Is it medium? Is it easy? And then, depending on the level of exam, you should decide on the number of questions you are attempting.
Okay, those are great pointers. What about you, Shantanu?
In the exam, most of it depends on. So you should be relaxed and calm. So what we do is, if you are stuck on a question and then you see that 4 or 5 minutes have gone, then a jitteriness or a tension comes in your mind, and it definitely affects your remaining set of questions also. So be relaxed and be calm. So it will solve half of your problem. And secondly, keep a check on your time. Take a watch with you, and be aware of the time you want to give in each subject. So if you are going to give 30 minutes for legal reasoning, so keep a check if it is going above 30 and still 2 or 3 questions are remaining. So then you have to decide that if you can score very well in the remaining questions, so you should attempt them taking 3-4 minutes more, or you should go to the next section. So it depends on you. So keep a check on time.
Okay. What about you, Gautam?
Uh, yeah, so firstly, I'll have to tell the students that you have to be, except for your actual preparation, you also have to be mentally prepared for CAT, right? You don't have to lose your cool, you have to keep calm, you have to keep confident in yourself even up till the last date, right? Eh, Especially the last few days, you have to keep your calm. You don't have to panic if you get if you're getting good in marks and then suddenly 1 week before the exam your score drops a lot. Then you don't have to panic or something like that, right? One mock cannot decide whether you're gonna crack that or not. It's the experience, is the preparation as a whole which decides how you're going to fare in the exam, right? So just be confident and don't lose your cool. I've seen many people who lost their cool on the last day, who panicked and who messed up their paper just because of this, just because they were not mentally prepared. So be mentally prepared. The paper is not very consistent, it's very unexpected, it has abnormalities, right? And it'll not be a perfect paper, but you don't have to get taken aback. You have to be prepared for that. You have to be prepared that Clat is very irrational at times and very unexpected at times also. Like in the 2021, the GK was a bit, irrelevant. You have to be prepared for that. Secondly, during your prep, make sure you don't get overburdened by too many mocks. Like, it's not like you're giving a mock every day, then you're not getting time to analyze. Make sure that whenever you're giving a mock, you have enough time to analyze, right? So these are the two things that are most important for you.
Okay. Molly, there are a couple of questions in the chat box. I would like you to answer them. The first one is, how does one prepare for CLAT without any coaching?
Okay, so first of all, coaching is not necessary. So many people think that, oh, you have to go to a coaching in order to clear the exam, but it's not the case. So you can obviously prepare. First of all, the first step of preparing any exam is to get the idea of that exam. So for maybe for like 1 month, you only have to go through the different toppers videos or blogs or like their strategies in order to know the nature of exam, what kind of exam it is, what kind of questions are asked, go through the past year question papers in order to understand like what is the pattern, how frequently questions are coming up from current affairs or from a particular topic of math. So the first step is to have a basic idea of what kind of exam you are entering into, and then the next step is to find the resources, right? So for that, again, you can see the toppers video or the blogs, and because see, there are some standard books which everyone refer, so you can go for them and make a list of your own books which you want to refer, and then prepare accordingly. And so for in CLAD, most of, I think, according to new pattern, is mostly based on thing, right? Like how good your reading ability or comprehension ability is. So start reading newspaper on, and not just only read newspapers for the sake of it, but read it thoroughly, try to understand what a particular article is saying. And you have to be smart. So for example, if you are reading newspapers and you started with the Hindu newspaper editorial and you are not getting what they are saying, you are just reading it, but you are not actually getting what the author is saying. So switch to a different newspaper, maybe read a newspaper which uses slightly easy language, right? Maybe you can switch to Times of India, that is slightly easier to read on. So first read that newspaper and then go to different the Hindu or like Indian Express. So you have to be smart, you have to make a strategy for your own. So you can obviously do it without going to coaching and stuff. But the only thing is you have to be determined, you have to give your time, you have to be disciplined, because I think only one thing that the coaching is, the students who go to coaching, for them that is plus point, is that they can be disciplined, because constantly there is a teacher on them who is saying that, oh, prepare this, give this mock test, and falana dimkana, right? So basically you have to be disciplined, you have, like, be a teacher kind of to yourself and be disciplined. Yes.
Okay, so I hope Priyanshi that answers your question. There is another question from Harsh. Shantanu, please take that up. He asks that he's a dropper student and how many mock tests should he take in a week because he has no time issues.
So it doesn't depend on the time issues. So I will prefer that initially you should take one mock a week, because what we do is most of my friends used to do was they used to give 3 or 4 mocks in a week in the last 3 4 months. So there was no time to do analysis or where you are scoring less. So give one mock and then do its analysis, and then in the next 2 3 days prepare more, focus more on the topics in which you have scored less. So if in maths, if in a particular kind of questions if you are scoring low, if in the English section if there is an article, let's say on economy or in international relations, and you are not getting the concepts in that, so maybe read articles on them and then give your next mock. So it depends uh, on uh, on like correcting your earlier mistakes. So I will recommend that currently you should give one mock per week, and in the last month, so last month basically is meant for revision and for some mocks which you can give. So yeah, at that time you can increase it to 2 or 3, but currently I think one mock will suffice in a week.
Okay, that's great. Any other questions, guys? This is a really good opportunity. All three of them are great students, and I'm sure that any questions you have, they will answer. So if there are no other questions, uh, I think not. I think not. So, okay, there is another question from Harsh. Maybe Gautam can take that up. Which mock series should I take? I have heard about Legal Edge, LPT, and CA, career launches, etc. Which mock series is the most important?
Uh, right. So for mock series, it's not like you have to take 2 or 3 test series from different institutes. That will be a waste of money, right? There's only a set number of mocks that you can do, right? So I attempted around 60. Personally, I attempted around, I think, 60 or something mocks around that figure, and I had purchased a test series from Career Launcher. But like you can give mocks from other institutes as well, Lena. Occasionally, right? Especially the All India mocks, because the All India mocks are, much more better than a normal mock, right? And they have a good set of questions. So you can give All India mocks of other coachings. Otherwise, just pick one coaching, right? Anyone that feels comfortable to you, right? So yeah, that's it.
Okay, wonderful. So I would like all the students to know that they are now eligible for a mentorship program with LEDX. So the link you see in the chat, you can avail that offer for free, and you will be in a mentorship program where we'll guide you. One last question, I think. Okay, which exam should we appear rather than Clat? Shantanu or Gautam, one of you guys can take that up. So whether they should give AILET, MHCET, those sort of things, any private institute entrance exams.
So
Shantanu,
my
maybe you can answer.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. So my personally, I gave only 2 exams. One was CLAT and the other was AILAT. Although many of my friends did go for the exam conducted by the Jindal Law School for MHCT, and definitely it depends on you. If you They are also colleges with good prospects. So if you want to attempt those exams, then definitely you should go ahead. It largely depends on your choice.
Right.
Okay.
Just to add to that.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
Right. So the thing is, you can fill up for as many as you want, right? You can fill up for Simbi, Nirma, and you can fill up for BHU, and there's MHCT, and there's ALIT. Right. You can fill up for all those. So it's good to keep backup options, right? As many as you can. You know. But just be careful that other exams such as MHCT, if you're not a Maharashtra domicile or ALIT, right? These exams have fewer seats than Clat, right? So they're more difficult to crack. Also, they have a very different pattern, right? They have analytical reasoning, and they have static GK and legal GK and all of that. So you have to be careful while choosing your options. That's one thing.
Okay, that's a great point as well. Akshat, hopefully that answers your question. Another reminder to all the students to please register on the link because they are eligible for a free mentorship program with LEDX. I thank all of you guys, Gautam, Molly, and Shantanu. All three of you did absolutely wonderfully. I'm sure that your tips will help these guys a lot. So thanks a lot. Best of luck for your futures in the law school. I think one of you is in the third year as well. So a tough period is starting. Okay, one last question. Molly, maybe you can take this up. Any good books which you suggest for preparation?
Books, as in, so again, it depends on the subject. So, for example, GK, I don't think so. There is a book as such, but yeah, you can read newspapers. You can follow 1 or 2 months. Like I would suggest one monthly magazine from any of the coaching institute, and maybe you can follow one website. I followed GK Today and Cloud Affairs, so these sites are good. So for GK, you can go with these sites. For English, I think I followed Arihant. There is this book of Arihant that and it is very good. It has some questions on RCs. It is on vocab and stuff, so you can go through that for English. Um, for maths and logic, I think there is R.S. Agrawal. I am not sure if I get the name right or not. But yes, there is this book of R.S. Agrawal, and that is also a very good book. And it's like that book is, I think, very popular among all the candidates of banks and banking exams and SSC exams. So yeah, for maths and logic, R.S. Agrawal would be good. And for legal, again, I don't think so. There is a particular book, but yes, you can follow one of the coaching institute's material for legal.
Okay, hopefully, Shreyasi, that answers your question. As I was saying, I would like to thank you guys. You guys did exceptionally, and best of luck with your futures at NLS. Hopefully, you guys get where you want to be and perform extremely well. See you, and to all the students, hopefully you inculcated all the values which they talked about: timekeeping, analyzation, preparation, everything, and especially your mental state when you're giving the exam. Please be prepared for that as well. So see you guys. Thank you, Molly. Thank you, Shantanu. Thank you, Gautam, and thanks to all the students for joining. See you guys. Bye.